What is going on out there, Mountaineer Nation? Couz's Corner family. This is another edition of Couz's Corner live stream. On topic tonight, we are talking about the news that broke today that AAU, the American Association of Universities, I think is what it's called, has added 6 more schools, including Miami, Arizona State, and Notre Dame. This ain't working, is it? Man. Sorry about the technical difficulty there. But what is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Couz, and welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner, another Couz's Corner live stream here at 9:06 p.m. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, had some technical issues, but we are here on a Thursday night. We are going to talk about the news that broke today regarding the American Association of Universities, AAU, adding 6 new members. They are USF, UC Irvine, Arizona State, Miami, Notre Dame, and there was one more that I can't remember. It was a smaller school, but nonetheless, the big ones were USF, Miami, Arizona State, Notre Dame. Those were the big 4 that really most of us college sports fans would care about. And that could play a role in conference realignment. USF just announced a few weeks ago they have big plans to upgrade their football stadium. Now they have been selected as a member of AAU, so they are trying to improve the status of not only their athletic department, but their university as a whole to be more attractive to bigger conferences, trying to get into that Power 5 league, I would imagine. And, of course, the AAU status also plays a huge role in, the school from an academics perspective. Puts them in kind of a special, group, so to speak. There's only a select few in. It's by invite only, and there are special criteria all the members have to meet. And you have to be voted in by at least 75% of the existing AAU members. Also, this could be a big deal when it comes to, like I said, conference realignment and teams changing conferences. We all know the Big Ten. They require, or at least for the most part, they like all their members to be in the AAU. As of now, all of them are except Nebraska. And Nebraska was an AAU university when they joined the Big Ten, but they have since left AAU. I don't know if they were kicked out or if they quit on their own. But either way, they are no longer in the AAU, but all the other schools in the Big Ten are. Most people, myself included, assumed that Notre Dame didn't really care about AAU and would probably never become AAU. I don't know that they really needed to anyway to get into the Big Ten. I'm sure the Big Ten would have taken them without being AAU, but nonetheless, they are. What's crazy about Notre Dame, though, is – sorry about that. I was fixing my camera. What's crazy about that, though, is Notre Dame really doesn't fit the criteria. From my understanding, and I don't know a whole lot about this AAU thing, but I was listening to our good friend Greg Flugar over on his show, College Football Speak Around the Corner, earlier, and heard him mention that Notre Dame doesn't have a medical school, or at least not one on campus anyway. And, they don't spend a whole lot of money on research, which is obviously what AAU is all about anyway. And, them being a Catholic school, it's not really been a high priority for them, at least is my understanding. So the fact that Notre Dame got in AAU was a little puzzling, to be honest with you. Kind of makes you wonder if there was some quid pro quo type stuff going on, some political type stuff going on, which would not surprise me. We all know in the world of college athletics and really in the world in general, to be honest, we all know those are things that do take place. Don't know what Notre Dame could be getting in return for some of those votes. But like I said, it takes at least 75% of the members. There were 65 members. That means they would have had to have, Notre Dame or any of these schools needed at least 49 votes to get into the AAU. Now, with Miami, we've all heard the rumors about the 7 ACC schools, but primarily the 4 in Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, and Clemson, all being unhappy with the conference, their current media deal, and how they're going to get passed up by the Big Ten and the SEC. Well, the talk has been, that Florida State and Clemson would likely be the first two to try to jump, maybe get into either the Big Ten or the SEC. But lo and behold, and we've all heard about Florida State potentially trying to become AAU members. Lo and behold, it's Miami that gets AAU status first. So could this be a way for them to maneuver themselves to be one of the first, or if not the first, ACC school taken by the Big Ten, if they can figure out a way to get out of that ACC grant of rights? So very interesting turn of events today. It'll be interesting to see if this has any impact at all on conference realignment. It very well could. And then again, maybe it won't. Who knows? It's hard to tell at this point. But it definitely appears that some of these schools could be angling to get better into better leagues. Now, Arizona State is another intriguing one. Arizona was already an AAU member. Arizona State was not. Now, Arizona State does spend a lot of money on research, but they were not, up until now at least, an AAU member. Now, I'm not saying I think Arizona State would get into the Big Ten, but hey, who knows? Could Arizona and Arizona State be trying to get into the Big Ten in the future? We will see. Does that make them candidates to become Big Ten members along with some of the other schools like Stanford, Cal, Oregon, Washington? Doesn't appear that the Big Ten has shown an appetite to add any more schools, at least not at this time, in the western part of the country. And if they do, from everything that's being reported out there, or at least rumored out there, is that Oregon and Washington would be at the top of the list, and then Stanford and Cal would likely come in behind them. And from a value perspective for the Big Ten's sake, I will totally understand that. I think those schools all make more sense than Arizona State and Arizona, especially when you look at brands and the value of the Big Ten and what those teams are worth. No offense to Arizona and Arizona State. A lot of us Big 12 fans have been wanting to see them come over to the Big 12, so we don't have any hate towards them at all. But when you look at the Big Ten, making $70 million per school versus the Big 12 at 31, big difference there. So Arizona State would probably bring $30 million worth of value. I don't see them bringing $70 million in value. So I don't see them being additive for the Big Ten, at least not at this juncture. But from an academic perspective, it does put Arizona State, up there with some of the more elite academic schools that are out there, especially when it comes to research. Now back to Notre Dame for a minute, because to me, they are the most intriguing one out of this whole thing. When you look at the amount spent, I looked at the Big Ten real quick. It's one of the reasons I was kind of late getting on here. I was doing some last-minute research. But when you look at the Big Ten and the AAU members, and even the ones that are not AAU, even Nebraska, who's not AAU, the average amount of money spent on research in the Big Ten is about $500 million ballpark. It's actually over that. I think it was around $550 million, somewhere in there, is the average amount of money that Big Ten schools spend on research. And all but one of them are AAU members. Notre Dame only spends, now this is 2021 numbers now, okay, so keep that in mind, but they only spend about $150 million a year on research. So about $400 million less a year on research Notre Dame spends than other teams in the Big Ten. Now, what I found intriguing, and I don't know if this number was a misprint or what, but the data I have shows that Indiana only spends about $130 million or $140 million a year on research. Which I thought was a little odd, but I'm not sure how Indiana got AAU status, only spending that amount of money on research. Maybe it's the type of research they're doing, or maybe, like I said, maybe that was a misprint. I'm not sure if there's anyone watching this that's a Big Ten fan, whether you're on here on the live stream or if you're watching after the fact. I would love to know how Indiana is AAU when they spend less than $150 million a year on research. So, and like I said, Notre Dame to me, I don't understand really how they got in, unless there was some quid pro quo. Notre Dame needing something in return for getting voted into AAU. Because we know stuff like that does happen, especially in the world of college athletics. So, I'm going to tweet my live stream out. I don't think it notified people like it should have. Facebook is bad about that at times. So I'm gonna tweet out real quick that I'm live. So bear with me just a second, guys, while I tweet this out. Sorry, I'm breathing hard. I was in a rush to get. I had to come over here next door to my in-laws' house. They're out of town at the moment, and my family, it's getting late here, and some of them were getting ready to go to bed and stuff. So I decided to come over here where it was quiet and wouldn't be disturbing anyone. My wife has to get up early for work, so it's hard for me to do live streams later. And a lot of times in the evenings, I'm too busy to do them. So, and I don't have anywhere in my house to go to avoid people. I got 3 kids, wife. So, and I'm not complaining at all. I love them all. So, not complaining whatsoever. Trying to see if I can share this out here real quick. Bear with me. Wasn't ready to do this here. Share. Twitter. Live now. Come join us to discuss today's news in college football. All right, guys, I got it tweeted out. Here's an interesting tweet from someone on Twitter called C.W. Lambert. His Twitter handle is at Inside the Big 12. He does some freelance writing. He claims to be well connected to some folks in the Big 12, potentially at WVU. I know he's a WVU fan. But here's what he tweeted out 3 hours ago. It says, Dateline, Big 12 meetings day 2 at the Greenbrier. And that's where they're having the meetings at the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia. It says, once again, I get the impression that UConn would be a basketball-only addition. The Huskies just don't want to spend the money on football required to win in the Big 12. So that's interesting. And then College Football Plus, Kirk Bowles today. There was an interesting tweet by Kirk Bowles today, who's covers. I think it's the Austin American Statesman, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who he works for. I'm gonna pull his tweet up from today. Interesting tweet he put out today. It says, because he's actually at the SEC meetings in Destin, Florida. And he put out a tweet about he saw Joe Castiglione, which is the AD of Oklahoma. OU AD Joe Castiglione hustling into SEC spring meetings with SEC presidents and chancellors. Said, and I quote, I'm meeting by Zoom with Big 12 people who are in the Greenbrier deciding on further Big 12 expansion. So Castiglione said he's meeting by Zoom with the Big 12. Why will Joe Castiglione be doing that? I don't get it. While they're discussing expansion. So that was an interesting tweet. And I've heard reports, and I'm trying to verify this, but I've heard from some folks that, and there are any of you West Virginia fans on here that may have heard this. I've heard from some folks that apparently on a West Virginia media outlet confirmed that UConn, Arizona State, Colorado, and somebody else may have been at the Greenbrier at these meetings. So, I thought that was interesting as well. Somebody actually sent me that in an email today. So, I haven't been able to confirm it. Don't know what media outlet. Haven't gotten an answer back as to what media outlet said it. And I didn't hear it myself. So if any of you heard that, let me know in the comment section. And you guys know how this works. If you guys want to make sure, I'll get to as many comments later as I can. But if you want to make sure your comment gets seen, you can drop me a super chat, which is a donation there where it says say something. Hit the dollar sign where it says say something there. Drop me a comment with a donation. It'll highlight it. And, that's one way you can help support the show here. And also make sure you get your comment read. I'll try to get to as many as I can, but I can't guarantee it. That'll help guarantee I see it. It kind of moves it up to the top. And those will get read before the others, obviously, if you're paying. So, got Creighton Rabs on here. We've got Oakley Burklow, James Hughes, Peanut Butter Hero, Viking 75, David Floyd, B Cab, Jeff Morgan, Alan Aaron. Thank you all for stopping in. I don't know, did this give you guys a notification that I was going live? Because I don't usually when I get on one of these, I've already got people waiting on me, and tonight I didn't. So I thought it was a little weird that, especially considering I was a couple minutes late, maybe it didn't put out a notification. Because I actually scheduled it earlier today, for 9 o'clock tonight. It did. Okay, good. Probably just because I'm doing it so late, maybe. Bobby says he agrees he don't understand UConn. Of course, I'm no expert, so what do I know? LOL. Well, none of us are experts, Bobby, but, I just, I love this stuff, man. I read about it. I listen to all the podcasts I can. I'm just kind of obsessed with it, so to speak. So, I like to get on here and share my thoughts with other people. I have, built some connections in the industry while I'm doing this, but, still trying to build more and add more. But, I am very confident that Colorado is going to end up in the Big 12. It's just a matter of when for me. I don't know that for certain. And these things are fluid. They can change at any time. But I do feel confident that that Colorado rather is going to end up in the Big 12 very soon. I do know that Colorado scheduled a new board meeting, executive session for June 6th, which is next Tuesday of next week, June 6th. Colorado has scheduled an executive session board meeting. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to vote on anything. Matter of fact, votes, I think, have to be public at Colorado. But they could be meeting. Now, the agenda is not out yet, so I don't know if it's sports related or anything like that. But I did find it interesting that, here we are, day 2 of the Big 12 meetings, and Colorado has all of a sudden scheduled a board meeting just kind of out of the blue that wasn't on the agenda or wasn't on the schedule before. We all know they had 2 earlier this week. Those 2 were supposedly to help find a treasurer for the university. This one could end up being something similar. Who knows? But as of right now, they've not posted an agenda, at least not the last time I checked. Trying to see if there's any new news here on Twitter about any of this stuff. So far, nothing. Here, Tim Brando says, the day at Deion Sanders was hired at Colorado, I stated on this platform, look for Colorado to head to the Big 12 Conference. Today, The Athletic is reporting the overtures are already in the works. The Buffs are featured weeks 1 and 2 on Fox. Don't be surprised. Oh, shoot. It cut it off. Don't be surprised if it's announced before the summer is out. So interesting. Tim Brando seems to think Colorado's coming to the Big 12. So there's just so much smoke around this. I just, there's got to be something here, right? You'd think. So, and, I've heard that Brett Yormark is supposed to speak to the media tomorrow, which tomorrow will be day 3 of the meetings. I've heard he's supposed to be speaking. I'm not sure if, I haven't confirmed that. And I haven't been able to find a time that he's speaking because I would love to be able to tune in and hear that. Not sure if anything's going to get announced or not, but it will be interesting. Tom Dean's got an interesting comment here. He says, Monty Show was called by Big 12 official who denied that anyone was at the Greenbrier other than Big 12 folks. Yeah, I think I did see that. I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't know Monty. I have watched his show a few times. Not sure if I believe what he says yet. He seems to bounce around a lot, so I don't know. I'm not saying he's lying, but Oakley Burklow, Couz, you've probably done more research than me. Does UConn really get the New York City market? I think, look, based on the research, the only thing I can tell you is they're they're less than 200 miles from, I think it's 150 miles or so ballpark from New York City, which is not far. They love basketball at UConn. UConn is a basketball powerhouse. Basketball is probably more popular in New York than football is, I would assume, especially college. New York, to me, is more of a pro football market. So based on that, I would say yes, it would in basketball, maybe not as much in football. I personally would have no issue adding them as a football member because I think, yes, they've been bad in football. They do seem to be on the come up though. Jim Moore did get them into a bowl game last year for the first time in a long time. But, and it's, Kansas was really bad in football for a long time too, and nobody wanted to kick them out of the Big 12. So, but but adding a member is different than kicking somebody out. I get it. But so do you want to add a team that's not investing a lot of money in football? Maybe not. And maybe UConn has no desire to invest a lot of money in football. Maybe that's not, on the horizon. But I've heard Jim Moore come out publicly and say that, he wants to be at a place that does want to spend money on football. So if they don't, he won't be there long because he's made it clear, I want to be at a place that wants to win. And in order to win, you've got to invest money. So who knows? But yeah, I think it would bring us to the part of the New York market, at least in basketball. Maybe not so much in football, like I said. Big 12 is coming to America's finest city. Hell, Montezuma. Yeah, I guess you're talking about Big 12 Mexico there, right? Creighton Rab says, I'm assuming they have voting rights, Creighton. I guess they could abstain from voting if they wanted to. But I guess they still have a right to vote if they want to. And maybe they just trust Joe Castiglione's opinion. I don't know. Seems a little strange to me that he's talking to them about expansion when they're not in the conference. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? Some other interesting news. Hero 75, thank you for the $10 super chat, my friend. He says, I expect this to be all but settled by the end of the month. The leaders of schools don't want to deal with this while on vacation, and they will want it done before the start of the season. Yeah, I would say, the last 2 years, we all know this expansion stuff has come out around the 1st of July. At least that's what happened last year. Now, I think the Texas-Oklahoma news might have broken around the 1st of August, maybe. I can't remember, but yeah, it was definitely during the summer. So I do expect something to happen this summer if there are moves made. David Hackett. David, thank you, man. He was the one who sent me that email I told you about. He says it was on WNVA TV that reported news, plus Greenbrier Resort staff could have been Zoom call. WNVA TV. I don't even know what that. I'm not familiar with that one. That must be in a different part of the state than where I am. That's interesting. Yeah, man, I wish I could have been at the Greenbrier to be a fly on the wall and roam the hallways and see who's there during these meetings, man. One of these days, though, when I get my media credentials at some point, hopefully in the near future, I will be able to do that one of these days. But yeah, WVNS TV. Okay, WVNS TV. I see it now, David, in the email you sent me. Monty was told the day before meeting started to listen to Wednesday meetings as something of interest was happening. Interesting. So WVNS TV. I'm going to see if I can find that. And David, I really appreciate you sharing that with me, man. It's good stuff. I think that might be, yeah, that's the Greenbrier area. Fox 59 News. I should have known that. That comes on where I'm at. Lord have mercy. Shows you how much network TV I watch, doesn't it? Not much at all. We've gotten to where we watch mostly Netflix or Netflix or Hulu, stuff like that. Streaming, basically. Colorado Board of Regents has an emergency meeting June 6th. I saw that, David. Executive session to discuss Pac-12. Well, David, they haven't posted the agenda yet. So I don't want to jump to conclusions and say it's about realignment, because the last I checked, unless it's changed, and I'll look at it right now, unless something's changed, they did not have an agenda posted for that meeting. But I'm going to look right now to see if that has changed. There's nope, no agenda yet. No agenda has been posted. Here, no agenda posted as of now. They are having a meeting June 6, 2023, special board meeting, executive session only. It says it's going to be done by Zoom. So they won't be voting on anything, but they could be discussing it. We all know the votes can come later. They can make the decision to accept. They can make a decision to join the Big 12 or send an invite into the Big 12. And then the Big 12 accept them, and then they vote on it. At least I think that's the way Greg explained it on his show, Greg Flugar. They get the invite, they send an application in, they get the invite, they accept it, and then they send it in, and then it gets accepted, and then they vote before they. I don't know. Nonetheless, they can actually it can be announced that they're joining the conference before the board actually votes to let them in, or votes to leave, rather. So, sorry, I know I'm all over the place, guys. I'm kind of hyper today. When I'm hyper, man, my mind's moving 1,000 miles an hour, and I struggle to get my thoughts out. I've had a lot of caffeine today. I'm juiced up on caffeine. By the way, guys, I am for those of you who, most of you may have seen it on Twitter, but for those of you who don't have Twitter or may not have saw it, I have become part of an upcoming upstart brand new media outlet called College Football Dogs. It is it's going to be a national media outlet that covers they want to cover every team in the country, but their goal is to cover as many teams in the country as possible, especially at the Power 5 and FBS level. I obviously will be covering West Virginia. It will be a blog. Now they will have a weekly podcast, and I may appear on it occasionally. Some of us may appear on it occasionally. But primarily I will be a beat writer basically for them to cover West Virginia. So, I'm excited about it. It's something different. Now, you all know most of you know I do have my own website and have been writing some for my own blog. And I will continue to do that. I'm not giving that up, and I'm obviously not going to give this up. They are allowing me to continue to do this and that simultaneously. It's a new opportunity. I'm just going to hopefully see how it goes. I'm committed to it, but something. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I just wanted to announce that to you guys. So be on the lookout for new news regarding College Football Dogs, DAWGS. Like I said, it's going to be a national outlet covering almost every team in Power 5. They're looking, if there's anyone on here who wants to cover a team and that's something that interests you, this is going to be a fan-driven company. They want fans to cover teams. They're going to provide media training. They're going to try to help us get media credentials to go to games. It's going to be the real deal. But it's an upstart. It's a new company, or it's not really a company. It's a new entity. Let's put it that way. And they want to be a company eventually, but right now they're not. But they're going to be covering, like I said, almost every school in America, or at least as many as they can find coverage for. But there are several of us that are going to cover West Virginia, and Mountaineer Paul is also going to be part of this with us. So just be on the lookout. It's going to be very, very exciting. At least I'm excited about it. And we'll see how it goes, So keep an eye out for my articles and articles by other writers as well, covering other teams. Every Big 12 team is going to be covered, I think. I think they've got everybody now for every Big 12 team. So that's pretty cool. And some of the teams have multiple people. Like I said, I think there's 5 of us covering West Virginia. 4 writers, and I think one is mainly a photographer. But yeah, it's something different, something new that I'm going to try my hand at and see how it goes. Their goal is to be a nationally known media outlet, just like 24/7 Sports, Rivals, and all the other ones. That's their goal. So let's see if they can get there. See a couple more super chats on here. Daniel Gigax, I appreciate the super chat, my man. Daniel says Colorado leaving doesn't kill the Pac-12. Losing Oregon and UW does. West Virginia native Rob Mullins being very quiet. Who knows what will happen? I agree, Daniel. They can withstand Colorado, can probably even withstand losing Colorado and Arizona, because they could backfill with San Diego State and SMU, or maybe a UNLV, maybe a Fresno State, somebody, right? But like you said, losing Oregon and Washington are by far the 2 most valuable brands left in that conference. You could argue they're the 2 most valuable brands left in any conference out that's not the Big Ten or SEC. At least Oregon, you can. Washington's probably not quite as valuable as Oregon, but they are very valuable. They are definitely one of the most valuable brands remaining as far as TV value, fan base, passion, size, all that stuff. But if you lose those 2, that conference is pretty much done. So I totally agree with Daniel's statement there that they could withstand Colorado leaving. They could backfill with somebody else, but losing that Denver market would be big. Wouldn't be the death knell, but it would be big. Tom Dean, thank you for the $4.99 super chat, my friend. He says if number 13 is Colorado, number 14 is Arizona, and number 15 is Arizona State, then who do you expect would be number 16? My guess is, Tom, it would either be UConn, which there's rumors out there that it would be basketball only, and then maybe Gonzaga. But if they wanted 16 football members, man, I don't know. Utah, because if they lose 3 teams, I know I said they could withstand losing Colorado and Arizona. I'm not sure they can withstand losing all 3 of those teams, because at that point, other teams are going to start seeing what's going on. They might leave. Then it's Katie bar the door at that point. And Utah may decide that, hey, man, we don't have a choice. We have to go. And then maybe they come over. And look, I know Utah fans, Big 12 fans and Utah fans have been going at it a little bit on Twitter, back and forth. There are some Utah fans out there that have been pretty ugly at times. But let's look at this from a practical standpoint. On the football field, Utah is a really good program. And they've won back-to-back Pac-12 championships, for crying out loud. They are arguably the best team in the Pac-12 today. You can at least make that argument. They're one of the top 2 or 3 anyway. And that is with USC still there. So Colorado would be a really, really good add, in my opinion, from a football standpoint. If you look past some of the crap we've had to deal with from some of their fans, I think, and then you get the Holy War rivalry in the Big 12. That's a big deal. That's one of the biggest rivalries in college sports, man. It would be huge to have that rivalry in our conference, in my opinion. Now, as a West Virginia fan, I don't like the idea of our teams having to travel out west, 3 or 4 more times a year. But, if they can add some Eastern teams along with them and, kind of divide up into like pods where you play, most of your games further east, or at least half of them anyway, that would be a little better. So, but, at the end of the day, I want what's best for the conference, because what's best for the conference will be what's best for West Virginia, because I want the Big 12, through all this conference realignment, this shuffling, this what appears to be consolidation, I want the Big 12 to survive this, because if the Big 12 survives, then more than likely West Virginia is going to survive and keep their seat at the big boy table. And that's what, as a West Virginia fan, that's what we want, right? We want our school to remain at the big boy table, at the Power 5 table. And, if that means adding some teams that we don't really want to add from a travel standpoint. Now, I have no issue adding these teams as far as quality, or, I know Colorado's not been good at football, but, they have nowhere to go but up at this point, right? And Colorado historically has been a really good brand. And if they get back to the Big 12 where they can recruit Texas better, I think they'll be a better program. Big Dan T, thanks for hopping in, man. He says Big Dan T is a channel member. Thank you, Dan, for your comment. He says I cannot stand Colorado, but if it is good for the conference, I'm in. Like to see more East teams. I totally agree, Dan. Kelby Johns, good evening, Couz. If Utah don't join the Big 12, I would like to see Washington State and Oregon. We don't need more G5, but if they go for a G5 school, I like Memphis. Yeah, Memphis is one that probably doesn't get talked about enough. Decent football program, really high quality basketball program. Would be closer to West Virginia than most of the other teams in the Big 12. Still wouldn't be all that close. Memphis, Tennessee's on the western end of the state, which is basically the Midwest, but it would still be a little closer than most of the other teams we play. So I do, from that standpoint, it would be a little better. I haven't ran the mileage yet. I do know UConn is, I thought UConn was actually closer than UConn's still about 500 miles from Morgantown, but it would be closer than, Texas and Kansas and these other places. But yeah, in Oregon State, in Washington State, I actually think Washington State and Oregon State both would be good fits as far as culturally for the Big 12. I think we have similar fan bases. They're both, they're in rural areas, just like a lot of the Big 12 teams are. So I think from that perspective, they would be a fit. It's just they would be such a huge geographic outlier. And I know that's kind of a crazy statement, right, in today's world. But even more than geography, I think it comes down to brand value. And unfortunately, even though those two teams have great, passionate fan bases, I just don't think their fan bases are large enough or bringing. And if you don't have a lot of fans, you at least better be in a big city. And neither of them are a big city. Now, Washington State would get you some of the Seattle market, but it's not going to get you majority of it. The Washington Huskies are going to get you the majority of that market. And then Washington State would, get you, probably a third, maybe a fourth of it, something like that. If I'm just throwing out, this is totally a guess. I don't know, the demographics as far as fan bases go of that market, but I just don't think they bring enough value as far from a TV standpoint. I think it's what it's all about now. It's all about brand value, TV value, and those kind of things. David Hackett says Brent Wild wants Pacific time zone. Gonzaga adds this. Agreed, but only for basketball. That's the thing. Why would he not want to get in the Western time zone for football? Which, if we get Arizona, we would have. Corvallis is closer to Portland than Eugene. Great point, Daniel. And I guess you would know because I think you live out that way, don't you? So Corvallis, which is in Oregon, is closer to Portland, Oregon than Eugene, Oregon. So yeah. But I still bet you I bet you though, if you did a poll of fans, I bet you there are more Oregon fans than Oregon State fans in Portland, if I had to guess. But now, from a TV standpoint, it might get you more TV sets. Now that's which we know a lot of this is about TV sets. It might get you more TV sets, and I don't even know with everything going to streaming in the future. I'm not sure if TV sets anymore are even as important. I think they're looking at brand value more than anything else nowadays, and how much you're investing in football and or in Gonzaga's case, basketball, I guess. Daniel says he lives 30 miles north of Oakland. Gotcha. That's right. You live in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's right. But you obviously know more about the geography of the western part of the country than I would. Silas says they've used Big League 2 primetime games in the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's go. Agreed, man. Pretty exciting, isn't it? We opened the season at Penn State on a Saturday night on NBC. We actually have 3 if you count our game against Duquesne. The Duquesne game starts at 6 p.m., but it's on ESPN Plus, and then we host Pitt the following week on the 16th of September at night as well. So yeah, we're excited about it. And we get another night game on the road at Houston in October. So we've got 4 night games already. If you count 6 p.m. kick as a night game, we have 4 night games already on the 2023 football schedule. And a little piece of trivia for you guys. The Saturday night game against Pitt on the 16th of September will be Neil Brown's first Saturday night game since he's been coach at West Virginia. Home game. First Saturday night home game since he's been coach at West Virginia. Because remember, last year we played Pitt, but it was on a Thursday night. Or say we played Pitt on the road, it was a Thursday night. Our home game last year against Baylor at night was also on a Thursday. So he's yet to play a Saturday night home game since he's been here. See, I saw something about Golden Blue. Oh, Anthony Carlson says Golden Blue dude would have eaten all this up. Yeah, he would have, man. I think about that quite often. Can you think of the ideas that he could come up with and scenarios that he could come up with all of this realignment? Man, he would be killing it right now, man. He would be killing it. Yeah, I was actually at the Kansas game, Mountain Your Dad 31. I was actually at that game. It was a 6 p.m. start too. My understanding is the school gets to pick the time of the uh, ESPN Plus games, which is what this Duquesne game is and what the Kansas game was last year. The school gets to pick the time, and for whatever reason, I guess West Virginia like 6 o'clock. I'm not sure why, but that's what they picked. I'm not sure why they picked 6 instead of 7, but that's what they picked. Anthony Manzano says, Couz question with the college football playoffs. Expanding to 12 teams, do you think the concept that college baseball does with College World Series, having regionals and super regionals, can work? Anthony, maybe. I've never really given it a lot of thought, to be perfectly honest with you. That's something I would kind of have to give more thought to. But I don't know how many more games would that be, man. That would add a lot of games to the season. I'm not sure how that would work from an academic standpoint and also from a player safety standpoint. That's going to be a big deal, especially as we get closer and closer to players becoming employees, which I think we're that close to happening. By the way, some more news that came out today. Daniel, I agree with you. 6 p.m. kick means getting back to Kanawha Valley at a decent time. Yeah, that puts you back in Kanawha Valley. You figure a 3-hour game, 30 minutes to get to your car. You're out of Morgantown by 9:30. You're back into the Kanawha Valley by what? Midnight? So, yeah, it's doable. The other news, the SEC today. The SEC voted. Listen to this now. They're adding Texas and Oklahoma in 2024. They're going to have 16 teams in their conference. And they still chose to only play 8 conference games. Can you believe that? They have to play 8 conference games. They play 1 mandatory game against a non-conference Power 5. And then they play either 2 FCS schools, an FCS and an FBS or something. Matter of fact, they're getting some flack for it, actually, which I kind of like from the national media. Brett McMurphy's been bashing them, man. He's been giving them a hard way to go. I'm going to read you this tweet he put out earlier. On 3, here it is. Breaking. The SEC will play an 8-game league schedule in 2024 with no divisions. Commissioner Greg Sankey announced. Let me pull up Brett's tweet. It was funny. Most of you may have seen it already, but Brett's not cutting him any slack, man. Brett McMurphy from the Action Network tweeted out. Let's see. Here we go. Great note from @Scott Doctorman, and I'm not. Scott Doctorman is with covers Iowa football for The Athletic. But Scott said teams playing at least 10 Power 5 opponents in 2023. Right, 13 of 14 Big Ten schools are playing at least 10 Power 5 games. 11 of the 14 Big 12 schools will play 10 Power 5 games. 10 of the 12 Pac-12 schools, 10 of the 15 ACC schools, only two SEC teams out of 14. Now, this is in 2023, by the way. Only 2 SEC teams in 2023 are playing 10 Power 5 opponents. Now, I don't get that. You talk about how it means more to you. You talk about wanting to play each other, wanting to highlight your conference, but you don't want to play non-conference games, and then you want to play, and even without that, you want to play most of your non-conference games against cupcakes. I mean, try to stand by your words. Try to walk your talk. If that makes sense. If you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. As far as the SEC goes. But I just thought that was funny that Brett McMurphy called him out on that. And then also, I saw a tweet from, I think it was Ross Dallinger here. What does Greg Sankey say to those who criticize the SEC for playing 8 league games? Over time, nobody is shying away from anything. We just didn't add another game during a period of transition. Oh, that was actually Sankey's quote. Nicole Auerbach also put out something. She was the other one I was thinking about that put out a tweet kind of taking a jab at the SEC a little bit. She says, let me see. Let me find it again. Sorry, guys. I'm doing this on the fly here. Oh, here it is. I really can't believe this is Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. I really can't believe the SEC won't have a 9-game conference schedule as a 16-team league. The whole point of being in a conference is to play each other. If OU and Texas were valuable enough to add, you should want them to play as many of your valuable brands as possible. So I totally don't get it. I really don't get it. The Big 12 was able to figure out a way to make it work. You know, they're playing non-conference games with 14 teams. Why can't the SEC play 9 with 16 teams? It just doesn't make sense to me. SEC equals BLOTED by that schedule, yeah. Yeah, Georgia doesn't play hardly anybody. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say Georgia's not an elite team. They are. They showed that in the SEC in the national championship game. But, man, play somebody. James Bacon says, thank you, Couz, for the content. Golden Blue Dude would be all over this stuff. Amen, man. I just saw Outlaw pop in. Outlaw College Football, another channel member. Go check his channel out too, guys. Puts out some good stuff. He says, the SEC is the toughest conference, and Nick Saban has scheduled tough early non-conference games 14 times. The other conferences like the ACC and PAC have built-in cupcakes. We all play cupcakes, fella. We all do, but we don't play. This is not necessarily Alabama personally. This is just the conference as a whole. The SEC plays 2. There are only 2 teams in the entire conference that play 10 Power 5 teams in 2023. All the other conferences have at least like 10 or 11 teams that do it, which is most of the conference. So they're basically playing 2 cupcakes, or they're playing 3 cupcakes. Think about it. No, 4 cupcakes. My gosh, it'd be 4 cupcakes. Because if you're only playing an 8-game conference schedule and your other 4 are out of conference, most of the teams in the SEC are playing 4 either FCS or Group of 5 schools. That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. It could come back to bite them. It could cause them, some teams to get left out of the college football playoff that might get in otherwise. It'll be interesting to see if they do get punished for that or not, for scheduling those cupcake games. So there is a disadvantage to that. At least there could be. Now, hats off to Alabama. They do schedule. They've scheduled Texas now 2 years in a row. They've got games coming up against West Virginia later on. Alabama, Nick Saban has been scheduling some tough games as of late. I'll give him that. Voice of College Football, no, they're not, Couz. They're playing 2 to 3. Look at the schedules. Okay, thanks for correcting me, man. I'm just going by what Brett McMurphy said. Brett McMurphy said there were only 2 teams in the SEC, and I haven't looked at schedules yet. Like I said, I'm just going off what Brett said. He said that the SEC there's only 2 teams playing at least 10 Power 5 schools. But you're saying that's not right? Voice of College Football, is that what you're saying? I don't know if I follow you there. I'll just do it right now. Let's pull their schedule up as we're talking. I'll do it right now. It's live. We can do what we want, right? SEC football schedule for 2023. Team by team dates. Here we go. So, Alabama plays Middle Tennessee, Texas, South Florida. All right, so Alabama plays 1 Power 5 team out of conference. Okay, that's Texas. They play Middle Tennessee, who I think is an FBS school. They play South Florida, who's an FBS school. And they play UT Chattanooga, who I think is an FCS school. All right. Arkansas plays BYU out of conference. That's their only Power 5 school. Auburn plays Cal. That's their only Power 5 school. So there's three right there. I'm not Brett's. I don't think. Oh, no, never mind. So they're only playing. So Alabama plays one Power 5 out of conference, which means they have 9 conference games, or 9 games against Power 5 opponents. Oh yeah, my bad. 4 cream puffs. They're not playing 4 cream puffs. I was wrong on that. They're playing 3. Still though, the other conferences are playing more than that for the most part because they're playing more conference games. If the point is, if you're going to play non-conference games, then at least play a couple Power 5s. Don't play a bunch of cream puffs. So I know what you're saying, voice of college football. Thanks for the correction. But yeah, you're right. Man, I had too much caffeine today. I'm having a hard time keeping my thoughts flowing here tonight, guys. I'm sorry. And obviously these lives are unscripted, so I just roll with it. Florida is playing. Let's go back. Auburn is playing. Their non-conference games are UMass, Cal, Samford, and New Mexico State. So they play one Power 5. They're all required to play with at least one non-conference Power 5. So I'm trying to see who it is that plays 2. Let me see. Florida plays Utah and Florida State. So there's one. Florida plays 2 Power 5 schools out of conference. So kudos to Florida. Georgia plays UT Martin, Ball State, UAB, and Georgia Tech. So they only play one Power 5 non-conference. Kentucky plays Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Louisville. LSU plays Grambling, Georgia State, Army, and where's the other one? See, they play Florida State. They opened the season with Florida State. I missed that one. So they only play the one Power 5. Ole Miss, Mercer, Tulane, Georgia Tech, UL Monroe. Mississippi State, Southeastern Louisiana, Arizona, Western Michigan, Southern Miss. Missouri plays South Dakota, Middle Tennessee State, Kansas State, and Memphis. South Carolina plays North Carolina, Furman, Jacksonville State, and Clemson. So South Carolina plays North Carolina and Clemson out of conference. That's the other 2. So it's South Carolina and Georgia are the only 2 SEC teams that play 2 Power 5 teams out of conference. Voice of College Football says line up who the SEC played last year, for example, versus any other conference: Texas, Oregon, Clemson, Utah, Louisville, Georgia Tech times 2, BYU, Cincy, FSU, Arizona, Wake, K-State, Pitt, Miami, Penn State is a better group than anyone. Okay, that's fair, but I'm talking about the number of Power 5 teams each team plays individually. Like, how many Power 5 teams did they play last year? I'll have to go back and look. I didn't realize Mark voice of college football was an SEC defender here. But anyway, but I do want to get my facts right. SEC football schedule for 2022. So let's look at it. Let me make sure I'm not missing any super chats here. Remember, guys, if you want to make sure I see your comment, you can get it highlighted by putting it and hitting the $sign at the bottom where it says "say something" and typing it there. It'll push it to the top. But thanks for hopping on here, Voice of College Football. I appreciate you, man. It means a lot. Um, and I know you're just searching for the truth, and I'm not trying to be dishonest here. I'm just trying to, point out that the SEC needs to be playing a 9-game schedule. Period, is my opinion, mainly, just like every other conference. And if they're not, then they need to play more Power 5 teams out of conference. Okay, but here we go. That ain't that this ain't gonna work here. That I gotta find a different site that shows it eat better than that one. Here we go. Maybe this one will work. All right, Vanderbilt. Let's see, week one of the season last year, you had Alabama played Utah State, Arkansas and Cincinnati. There's a good game. Florida, Utah, Georgia, Oregon. Yeah, I don't really have time. It's hard to do this live because I'd have to look at all the other conferences as well. But Alabama, Texas, South Carolina, Arkansas. That was which that's 2 SEC teams there. Week 2 didn't have many. Arizona was a Power 5 team out of conference. Kansas State, Pitt, Tennessee, and Pitt. I forgot about the Tennessee Pitt game. So yeah, Mark, what's college football? I understand what you're saying. Maybe you're right. I'll have to go back and do a side-by-side comparison to really do it justice. Thanks for the $10 super chat. He says, keep up the great work, man. You're awesome. I understand your point about uniformity. I'm on board, but from the SEC standpoint, it is the best conference, and their non-conference games are stacked. And that's fair. Maybe I was being too harsh. I was just surprised to see people like Brett McMurphy calling them out, honestly. And maybe if you look at it, one good thing to think about is if you look at the teams they're playing non-conference, maybe, that has to account to not all Power 5 teams are equal, right? So maybe if you take that into consideration as well. And I'll admit, look, the SEC, you've got Georgia and Alabama, arguably the top 2 teams in the country right there. Tennessee's good again. Arkansas is a tough out. Florida can be a tough out, especially if they get back to where they used to be. So, it's a tough conference. I'm not saying it's not, but I do think there needs to be uniformity. I think if you're going to have a playoff, in order to make it fair for each, and have automatic qualifiers, to get an automatic qualifier, each conference needs to play the same amount of conference games, in my opinion. I just think it's, like I said, I know all conferences aren't equal, but in any given year, one year the Pac might be harder than the Big 12. The next year it might flip. The next year the ACC might be the best of those 3, And even the Big 10, they've got Ohio State, who's dominant, Michigan, who's been dominant lately. Penn State's, on the cusp of potentially being really good again. And they are good. They're on the cusp of being really good. But really, when you get past that, I don't think the Big Ten's that strong either. Iowa hasn't been, they were terrible offensively. So all these conferences, those 2 conferences even are top heavy. But it's just the top of the top are elite. That's the difference. The top teams in those 2 conferences are elite, or at least I don't know if I'd even call Michigan elite. TCU beat them, so I don't know if I'd call them elite. But you get what I'm saying. You got 2 or 3 teams that are just a rung above everybody else in the league, even in those 2 leagues. So the bottom half of the SEC and Big 10 are really no better than the other Power 5 conferences, in my opinion. I'm sure Outlaw disagrees with me here, being a SEC guy. He says, Tom Dean, the SEC has had 6 different teams win the national title. Can't argue with that one. That's absolute fact. Since the adventure of the BCS. That's an absolute fact. Outlaw college football can't be denied, my brother. Sergeant Pickle says just have all conferences play 9 and call it a day. Good argument. SEC would make more money too. They would. And, Sankey did say they plan to do that going forward, but I'm just not sure how they couldn't make it work. I don't get it. Like I said, the Big 12 was able to make it work with new teams coming in. Not sure why the SEC couldn't. But, it is what it is. I guess somebody in the room had a loud voice. Outlaw says, who does West Virginia play? Second time I asked you, spit it out. I didn't see your last one, man. I can't see every individual comment in this chat, man. Not possible. It is not humanly possible to see every comment in chat. So yeah, that comment kind of ticked me off. I ain't gonna lie to you, but yeah, we play Penn State and Pitt. That's our two non-conference games. So you can't say we're not playing a tough schedule, and it's probably going to come back to bite us in the butt. Because it could be. I know Penn State's going to be a loss, and there's a good chance Pitt could be a loss. So, now Coach Brown's not happy about it, but he wasn't here when they made the schedule. That was done way before his time. So, Voice of College Football says we need a commissioner, governing body to standardize and do what's best for the entirety of college football. NFL commissioner, owners do what's best for the entire organization. Each conference acts exactly. Voice of College Football. You're absolutely on the money there. NCAA has just been so poorly run for so long. I'm of the opinion, this is a totally separate topic, but I think college football needs to break away and become its own entity anyway. It's gotten so big and there's so much money in it now. It just needs to be its own entity. So Mark, I totally agree with that statement. Outlaw says he's just grilling me. I know, man. Sorry about that. You do that to me a lot. And Outlaw and I are buddies, so he can grill me, but it just kind of irritated me. Not gonna lie. Sometimes I can't tell when you're serious and when you're not. Yeah, West Virginia will defeat Duquesne. I hope. If we don't defeat Duquesne, my gosh, it'll be the season's pretty much shot at that point. Because keep in mind they're kind of local too. They're in Pittsburgh. Duquesne's in Pittsburgh, so that's it's not really a rivalry. Now, it used to be in basketball back in the day, it was a rivalry when both teams were in the Atlantic 10 together. But now it's not, and it never was in football. Maybe back in, decades ago before my time. I'm not a college football history guy, so I don't know anything about the history of those two schools as far as together. But I know in modern times they've not been because Duquesne is an FCS school. Badger and Behemoth. What's that say? Badger and Burnermouth fan. That's a mouthful. Let's face it, all that matters in college football anymore is money. It's really sad for the sport as a whole. I agree. The Duquesne Dukes, that's exactly right, Jason. Exactly right. And I saw somebody say something about tell Outlaw and Roger to get their own show. Outlaw actually has his own show. And he doesn't have one with Roger, but he does have his own show. Outlaw of College Football, as it says. What did Roger say? I'm trying to find Roger on here. What did Roger have a comment? Oops. Shoot. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to find Roger's comment. I don't see one. What did I miss? Oh, SEC will announce 2024 schedule June 14th. Okay. I'll be interested to see, how they do and how they, I'll be anxious to see what Power 5 teams they do play in their non-conference games. The Autonomous Power 5. The Autonomous 5 is the Super League, and currently they are consolidating from a Power 5 down to something else. Immaculate, I agree with you, man. Creighton says TCU played Duquesne a couple years ago in Fort Worth. As I recall, they went to a running clock in the second half. The game was that bad. Yeah, I mean, it should be a blowout, really, but you can't. Those games, you never know, man. That is that. Anytime an FCS team plays a Power 5 team, that is their bowl game, man. That is their moment to prove something, and that could be the biggest game of those players' career. Depending on who they're playing and how their season's going, that kind of thing. So they're going to bring their A game each and every time, and we've seen every year FCS teams beat Power 5 teams. It happens every year. Now, knock on wood, West Virginia has never lost to an FCS team, but that doesn't mean they can't. So they better come ready to play. Go Knowles FSU says, Couz, I agree that eventually schools will break away from the NCAA in football. I think they need to, man. It's just gotten too out of hand. The NCAA can't control it. They need their own governing body. They're being own separate entity. And I'm at the point, I'm kind of like the SEC coaches, man. It's gotten so much like the pros now. Let's just run it like the pros. Let's adopt an NFL model, give the players a share of the profits if we have to. Now, the only thing about that is I worry that schools, even like my own school, West Virginia, would have to drop athletic programs, and I don't want to see that happen. So if there's a way to do it without doing that, I say I'm all for that. But I don't want to root for sports to get dropped, because when you drop sports, you could be potentially dropping scholarships, and it could be keeping somebody from getting free education. So Texas Tech is a mid-carder too. Go play women's basketball, Red Pudding Raiders. Ohio State cares so little for non-conference they canceled a series against Washington for Marshall. Well, I tell you what, Marshall went into South Bend last year and beat Notre Dame. So I'm not saying that'll happen to Ohio State, because I know Ohio State's probably better than – well, I'm not probably – Ohio State's better than Notre Dame at this juncture. But still, like I said, that's going to be Marshall's Super Bowl, man. They're going to come ready to play, so you better bring it. And Charles Huff, their coach, is no slouch. He's a good coach. He'll have those guys ready. A couple years ago, Drake almost beat ISU when we were pretty good. Yeah, exactly. We've seen Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech twice on the road. And one time was and then let's see, what was the big one? I remember the year. The big one was when Michigan beat Appalachian State beat Michigan several years ago. Yeah, it happens every year. See something about Pitt here. Peninsula Peach says, I like Pitt to win in Morgantown, but wouldn't be surprised if y'all win. Yep. Cyclone Steve, thanks for hopping in. He says, what did I miss? Basically, at Cyclone Steve, at the beginning, a lot of you probably missed this because there wasn't many on in the beginning. But I was talking about the news that broke today that Miami, Notre Dame, Arizona State, and USF, South Florida, were all granted AAU status. Now, the AAU status, as most of you probably know, is that it's based on academic research and how much money schools spend on research and what type of research. It's kind of like an elite level. It's the highest level you can get as far as academic research. And most people thought Notre Dame would never get in because they don't do a lot of research. They spend less than 150. They spend around 150 million a year, at least as of 2021. The most recent numbers I have, they spent around a little less than 150 million in research. Most AAU schools spend over $500 million in research. So I'm not sure how Notre Dame got in. I think there's some, quid pro quo stuff probably going on, some political posturing. What is Notre Dame getting out of this? We will see. Let's face it, Notre Dame could have gotten in the Big Ten anyway, so I'm not sure if this helps them there at all. But maybe it gets them more votes to get into the Big Ten, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there were a few votes missing and they needed it, and this gets them those votes. I don't know. As far as Miami getting AAU, now, Miami was already a highly ranked academic school from a rankings perspective. They just didn't have AAU. Well, now they do. That means they beat Florida State to the punch of getting AAU and could potentially give them a leg up in getting into the Big Ten should they want to do that. And then as far as South Florida goes, obviously their goal is to get into a Power 5. This may help them do that. We also heard a few weeks ago they're announcing that they're putting more money into their football stadium or facilities, whatever. So that will also help them. Is it too little too late for USF? I don't know. And then Arizona State, they're in the pack, high. They're already a good academic school, but they just had that AAU status missing. Now they have it. Them and Arizona both now have AAU status. So, does that help them get in the Big Ten? I don't think so. I don't think Arizona State, no offense to Arizona State, because I said this earlier, a lot of the people are wanting them in the Pac-12, so it's not, or Big 12, so it's not like we're trashing them. But when you look at the Big 10 versus the Big 12, 70 million per school versus 31 million per school, Arizona State's not bringing you 70 million per school value, but they might bring you 30, 31 million in value. So I don't think Arizona State is a big enough brand to get into the Big 10 based on where they are academically. Financially. So I don't know that it helps them there, but it could help them in the future for the next round of alignment or the next round of TV negotiations if they choose or want to try to make that move. Let's face it, guys. Every school, as bad as I was trashing the SEC a minute ago, let's be honest here. Every school that's in the ACC, the Big 12, or the Pac 12, they want to be in one of those other two conferences. That's just where we are today. And every school out there is probably going to do whatever they can to try to get into one of those conferences. They have now become the targets as far as people are chasing them. We talk about the Power Two. It's because they have now created such a huge gap financially that nobody else is going to be able to stack up. That's just where we are today. Sergeant Pickle says Washington did $1.67 billion in research. Cal and Stanford even more. That isn't the only factor. I see. Okay, I missed the first part of that conversation. That's why I'm confused here, I guess. Tom Dean says Super Football Conference for football would soak up all football money. At that point, Kansas becomes the belle of the ball. Yep. See, I'm going to read that again. Make sure I understand what you're saying. Super Football Conference for football will soak up all football money. At that point, Kansas becomes the belle of the ball. Interesting. I have to think about that one, Tom. I'm not sure if I agree with that or not yet. Do you think that Deion will let Colorado in the Big 12? They say they won't do it if he doesn't want to. Yeah, I've heard that, and I've heard he wants it. I've seen it on Colorado message boards from folks who were supposedly in the know, and I've even seen it reported by a couple media folks. Don't remember the names off the top of my head. Maybe it was Dennis Dodd. Pitt is north of $1 billion in research expenditures, Big Ten bound. Maybe they are AAU. You never know, but they're not valuable enough for the Big Ten, in my opinion. They're not a strong enough brand. I mean, heck, West Virginia to me is not. I'm a West Virginia fan. I don't even think West Virginia brings enough value to go to the Big Ten, and that's my school. I'm just being real here. When you look at, and it's only now we have a very passionate fan base. Fairly, our fan base is big when you look at the size of our state. I don't even think we bring enough value, but I even think West Virginia is a more valuable brand than Pitt because we have a larger fan base. Our fans are more passionate. We typically get better TV ratings. We're more active on social media. We usually do better in merch sales. I mean, you look at every metric that matters other than winning lately, obviously. But even historically, we have more wins than Pitt historically. So, even historically, I think they have us in the one-on-one. I get that. But when you look at number of wins overall, we do have them there a little bit by a slight margin. But I think in every factor that matters other than, recent wins in the last decade, or last 5 years, I don't even know about decade, but last 5 years, we have Pitt in almost every category. They are a higher ranked academic institution, and they do have AAU, which West Virginia does not. But I don't know that West Virginia will because it's just not really part of their mission. I mean, they're a land grant school. They're a flagship school, and their job is to educate as many West Virginia citizens as possible. And in order to do that, you have to have a high acceptance rate, which leads to a lower graduation rate, which hurts your academic rankings. It all goes hand in hand. Is there a glitch in the matrix? I could swore I've heard this exact conversation. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Cyclone Steve. I apologize, man. I don't know if you're referring to me or Outlaw or one of the conversations in the chat. Outlaw College Football says, Con-Time Deion Sanders is going to really let down a lot of his man crushers. Got their Deion posters on their ceiling over their bed, peeling their taters. Aha. Yeah, there are a lot of Deion love out there. The AAU is a farce to hide behind. I think it can be, Outlaw, because I think, like the Notre Dame thing, there's no way Notre Dame qualifies to be an AAU school. I'm sorry. Look, they're a great institution. I'm not down them as an institution, but they're not a research school. And to me, it just waters down the meaning of the AAU purpose. When you start getting political and letting teams in just because of who they are, it waters down the value of AAU, in my opinion. Um, I mean, I think I haven't looked at this recently, but I'm pretty confident that West Virginia does more research than Notre Dame does. The last time I checked, West Virginia had done 200 million in research, and Notre Dame was less than 200. So I, I just don't understand. And we have a medical school on campus. So I don't understand. I really don't understand how. Uh, I don't know. To me, letting Notre Dame in just waters down the purpose of AAU. I don't get it. I don't get it. West Virginia deserves it more than Notre Dame does. Just to be frank, I'm not saying we're a better institution than they are, but when it comes to AAU, we deserve it more because we spend more money in research than they do. We have a medical school on campus. There's PhD. They can get PhDs, all of that stuff from West Virginia. So how did Notre Dame get it? It's because they're Notre Dame. Pitt does lead the all-time series, and I think I mentioned that. You're right. Now we owned you guys from 2000. See, from 2000 to 2010, I believe it was. We pretty much owned you guys. Obviously, there was that one big one in 2007 that we won't discuss. That you guys got us, and there was a couple more. But I mean, for the most part, West Virginia dominated in the 2000s over Pitt. But then after that, obviously, you guys got us last year, and have a good chance of getting us again if Neil Brown's not able to turn things around. But all time, yes, Pitt does have hold the one-on-one edge over West Virginia, but it's close enough to where it is a really good rivalry, and the games are. Oftentimes, the games come down to the wire, even if one of the teams is not very good that year. Like last year, for example. I mean, let's be honest. West Virginia had Neil Brown went for it on 4th and 1 and got it. West Virginia wins that football game. And Pitt finished 8-4. West Virginia finished 5-7. Now you can make the argument that Pitt had a weak schedule in the ACC last year, but nonetheless, they still were a better team. So, and West Virginia, by all intents and purposes, should have won the game. And in my opinion, was the better team that particular night, were it not for a few boneheaded mistakes. Purple Haze says basketball is a rising revenue. The future will show in time. Agreed. WVU R1 school, but no AAU. Agreed, Anna. They are R1, which is the next level down from AAU. So, yeah, West Virginia is a great school when it comes to research, medical research. Their medical school's top-notch. WVU Medicine is top-notch. My wife is now an employee there because they recently bought out the hospital she works at. So, my wife is now an employee of WVU, which is pretty cool. I now get to see the flying WV every day when I drive by. So, it's kind of nice. And I live 3.5 hours from Morgantown, so it's kind of, I don't get to see it. Obviously I got fan stuff all over my house, but as far as being on a building or something, it's not something I'm used to. But it's pretty nice to see that big yellow flying WV on the outside of the hospital, right? Really right down the road from my house, actually. Oh, Notre Dame, you definitely felt political, yeah, definitely. Deion Sanders is wrong for kicking scholarship players off his team. John, I don't like what he's doing either. I don't like the rate he's doing it, but I'll be honest with you, that happens throughout college football. I read up on that a little bit. Pretty much all teams do it. Here's the kicker, though. They actually, if a player is on a team with a scholarship and the coach removes him from the team, that player is allowed to go to school there and keep their scholarship. They do not lose their scholarship if they get removed from the team. They just passed this law. NCAA just passed this a few years ago. I think when they brought in when they implemented the transfer portal, I think they also implemented this rule, or at least right after it. If a player gets removed from a team, he can keep his scholarship at the school. But here's the thing. These guys want to play football. They're athletes. They're trying to get to the NFL in most cases. They want to play football. So if they get kicked off the team, they don't want to stay at that school. So they choose not to. They enter the portal. But yes, so I don't like what he's doing either. But it's not because he's doing it. It's the amount of kids he's doing it to. And I've heard through the grapevine, and I haven't said this publicly, and I'm not going to share my source, but it's somebody that would know. It's somebody involved in the NIL world, put it that way. told me that they're hearing that Colorado is making a lot of promises to students and not backing it up from an NIL perspective. Now, like I said, I don't know that that's true with certainty, but I do trust the person who told me. And if that's happening, it's a shame. And that may not necessarily be the school's fault. It's the school's fault for making the promise. It's not necessarily the school's fault for not following through, because obviously the school and the NIL collectors are separate from one another. But the school shouldn't be making those promises if they can't keep them. At least we own Pitt in baseball and basketball. Now, that's true. We do own them in those two sports for sure. Pitt is like 62-40 all time. Yeah, something like that. It's close enough to be a rivalry for sure, especially considering they're only 70 miles apart. To be clear, there are no bad schools academically in the P5. Bingo. They just have different missions and goals. I actually had that conversation on Twitter earlier with somebody, Sergeant Pickles. Guy made a comment that I made a comment that I think it was a comment I made on Twitter about bringing Arizona and Colorado into the Big 12 might increase their academic standing as a conference. And this person, who's a Pac-12 person, shot back at me and said it would be the dumb leading the dumber. And I thought, man, that's a stupid statement. And this guy's a Utah graduate, but he said there are no elite schools other than Stanford and Cal. And I just think that's wrong. I think that's a terrible way to look at it. Now, later I found out I think I misunderstood his meaning behind that comment. But on the surface, I thought, man, that's a terrible statement to make. But so I agree with you, Sergeant Pickles. All these Power Five, and even most of the Group of Five schools, man, are really good schools. Heck, USF got AAU status today, so there are a lot of good schools. I mean, heck, I went to a Division II school, little small Division II school here in Southern West Virginia, and I turned out okay. I have a good education. It's a nationally accredited program that is recognized all across the country. So, you don't have to be a major big name. It don't have to be, a major big name school to get a good education. It's kind of a misnomer. Now, if you're applying for a job, you got two resumes side by side, and let's just pick a school. One's from Kansas State and one's from Bluefield State, where I went. The Kansas State's going to look better. It does look better, but that doesn't necessarily mean the education's better. Now, if you're Stanford, Cal, somebody like that, it's that's a whole nother level. They're almost Ivy League level. That's different. But for the most part, the rest of them are pretty dang close, in my opinion. Like you said, they just have different missions. Outlaw College Football says Notre Dame got the AAU so the Big Ten could invite them and pretend their academics are so much better than other conferences. If you were fixing grades, are your student athletes really smarter? Fixing grades. What school was that? Outlaw. I'm refresh my memory. But if there's a Big Ten person on here, I asked this at the beginning, but there wasn't as many people on. If there's a Big Ten person on here, can you answer this for me? How is Indiana? I was looking at the amount of money spent on research, and I noticed, and this number was a misprint because I got this information from someone else, Tony Altimore, actually. I know a lot of my Big 12 people don't like Tony, but he has shared a lot of cool data with me. Going back to 2021, Indiana had only spent about $130 or $40 million or so on research. How are they AAU? I'm confused there as how Indiana got AAU status. It's kind of like Notre Dame, I guess. There's got to be something else, something that I'm missing there with Indiana as to how they got. Tom says Notre Dame research $240 million. Was that in 2022, Tom? What year was that? Because like I said, the data I've got is from 21, and it was only $147 million. But there again, I don't know where Tony got his info from. I'm just basing on the numbers he gave me. D2 grad from what's now called Penn West Cal. Bluefield State, by the way, is joining the CIA. Yeah, I saw that, Creighton. I did see that, man. They actually won the HBCU World Series or the Black College World Series or whatever it was a couple years ago. They actually won that because they are a historically black college, and they are an HBCU, and they won the World Series a couple years ago. That's pretty cool. I don't support them like I should, man. My heart bleeds gold and blue, even though I graduated from blue. It's just different. It's just different when they're not on a national stage, and I'm sure you get it too. But But yeah, it's I'm proud of my alma mater, man. They I got a good education from there, and it's done well for me. I'm not a rich man by any means, but I make a comfortable living. I have a good job, a job I would never thought I would have, and without my education, I wouldn't have it. So it's done well for me. No complaints at all. Uh, Daniel says Indiana Medical School is now separated from the Bloomington campus. Is that good or bad when it comes to AAU? Immaculate says Indiana has been AAU for a long time. Probably, perhaps their research numbers have gone down over time. Probably, possibly so. And I thought maybe that could be part of it because, like I said, I only had 1 year's worth of data. Uh, I saw some. I went to Concord. Jacob, what's James Blankenship? I went to Concord University, and it's a good school. I actually started out there, James. Went there for 3 semesters. Couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do with my life. Left Concord, ended up sitting out a semester, then transfer. I met my wife at Concord, actually. Her and I both did the same thing. We started out at Concord, kind of changed our, just changed our minds on the direction we wanted to go. Ended up both going to Bluefield State for separate degrees, but both ended up transferring to Bluefield State and graduating from there. So, but yeah, Concord's a really good school. It's a different school. Bluefield State's more of an engineering business school, whereas Concord, which Concord has business too, but they're more of a teacher, arts college. But I started out there because I wanted to be a phys ed teacher, and then I had some of my old teachers talk me out of it. Ironically, then I decided to go into sports management. Then I realized, my gosh, I can't do anything with this in West Virginia. So, and at the time, I didn't have any intentions of moving, which I still haven't. Uh, but yeah, I decided I can't do anything with a sports management degree in West Virginia. So, ended up changing to business at Bluefield State, and here I am. I'm a non-college educated. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that either, man. Hey, here's what I tell my I got 3 daughters, and I've told them all, look, I'm not going to force you to go to college. A lot of parents, I grew up with a lot of friends whose parents forced them to go to college. They either end up dropping out or they don't use the degree they got because it was in something they didn't have a passion for. I told my kids, I don't care how much money you make or what you do. If you don't halfway like what you do every day, your life's not going to be happy. So if there's nothing in college for you, if there's nothing that interests you or that you want to do, I don't discourage. Obviously, I want them to go to college. I don't discourage it, but I'm not going to force it on them because I just don't. There's no reason to waste 4 to 5 years of your life or more in some cases, and tens of thousands of dollars for something that you don't use. I just think it's a waste. And I think pushing college on kids for so many years has actually hurt us as a country because there are now not enough people in the trades. I mean, I work in the cement concrete world. They're dying for truck drivers. They need masons. They need, which is a block layer. There are not enough plumbers out there now. There are not enough electricians, carpenters. All of those trades are dying because we've all pushed our kids to go to college, 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 college. What about all these other high-paying, respectable jobs that you can do without going to college? It just doesn't make sense. Sergeant Pickle says, I ended up becoming a journeyman CNC technician with a good paying union job. There are paths for everyone if you work hard. Bingo, man. You hit the nail on the head. My oldest daughter is a nail technician. She does nails every day. She likes what she does. She's not making a lot of money yet, but she's only been in it less than a year. So, but she could do really well at it. If she sticks with it, she's very talented at it. It's something she's passionate about. She works hard at it, improving her craft. So yeah, I mean, I'm proud of her for it, man. I just think I'm not going to say college is overrated. It's overrated for some people because not everybody needs to go to college. I had no skills. I'm not good at doing things with my hands. I'm just not that guy. So for me to live the life I wanted, I needed to go to college, but not everybody does. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If we have to have people to do every job or there's nobody to do it, right? To make this country work, we have to have people. We have to have people at McDonald's. We have to have somebody. We have to have a janitor. You have to have somebody to dig the ditches. You've got to have somebody to lay the pipe. You got to have somebody to wire up the electricity. I got a guy coming tomorrow to look at my heat. I think my heat pump went out in my house. We got to have somebody to do that. So I don't judge people, man. College, no college. I don't know how I got on this tangent, but I'm kind of passionate about it. If you can't tell. Outlaw says you could also be an aspiring sports podcaster and make six figures like Matt Be Great and Couz. I do not make six figures. Trust me. Oh, Matt Be Great probably does, but he's got like 100 and some thousand subscribers or something. I don't. Matter of fact, six figures. I barely make four figures. Nah, it's not a. This is not a gig you get into to make money at. I mean, you can make money, and I do make a little, but you gotta enjoy this, or you don't, because this is something you just enjoy. I'm doing this as a hobby more or less. But I do have, now listen, I say that I do have the aspirations of doing this full time at some point. But it'll take me a while to get there. And I don't like, I ask you guys for donations and stuff occasionally, but I don't really like doing that. So I probably won't get as far as some people, because I don't like asking people for money. But anyway, Daniel Gigak says, I make more money as an aircraft mechanic than I can off my Sacramento State aerospace engineering degree can pay. Planes break all the time. Designing planes is now all done with computers. See? Perfect example, Daniel. I appreciate that, man. Tell you, on these live streams, you never know what topic you might get on, man. Movie Time Blues. Thanks for hopping on. That's a name I haven't seen on here before. Thank you for hopping in. And if I missed you before, I apologize. But he says, or Movie Time Blues says, I don't want to assume it's a male. Yes, education could use a revamp. There has been an overcorrection where there's been too many in banking, liberal arts, and law. Even nursing is in danger of being a glut. Agreed. There's a shortage of teachers right now, at least where I'm at. I don't know if it's a countrywide issue or just a state issue. There's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage, like I said, all the different trades. Truck drivers. There's a huge shortage of truck drivers right now. If a person want to make a good living, they could get into truck driving right now and make good money. Especially if they can invest in their own truck. Really make good money. What's scary is AI taking a lot of jobs. But you can also use that to your advantage, Outlaw. If you're a person who learns how to use AI and use it correctly and successfully and efficiently, you could take advantage of that and get a job with a company, handling their AI stuff too. But I agree with you. It is kind of scary. I mean, I heard, my wife told me the other day, and I don't know if this is true. And I know my wife wouldn't lie to me, but I don't know where she got the info. She said that Elon Musk was creating robot wives that they're almost ready to introduce those, I guess. For $3,000, you can buy a robot wife. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, that's stuff like we used to watch in the movies, Now it's actually real. We're actually living in a time where you can buy a robot for your wife. That's nuts. Wife is a nurse, went to a smaller school and only has 40,000 debt with a BSN. Hey, man. My wife's a memo tech, man. And you think about how important these jobs are. The nurses, the rad techs, the ladies that do memo, they are saving people's lives literally every day. And we don't think about that, very important jobs out there in the medical field, man. EMTs, paramedics, and EMTs and paramedics make very little money. Very little money. They do it because they're passionate about saving people. But it's a very admirable job, man. And I really respect people who do that every day. Sounds like more run of the mill Elon Musk insults. If that happens, I doubt it's Elon Musk that does it first. I don't know. I don't really understand your statement. Totally understand it. Buy a robot to help your wife. Nah, a robot to replace the wife. Haha. That's what I'm saying. Robot to be your wife, not to help them, to be them. My wife will be awesome. I'm not going to tell you what I asked my wife. You can imagine. Oh, she said, yeah, you can program them to do that. I'll let your imagination figure that one out. Google or Meta would probably make the first robot wife. Maybe. I don't know why, I don't have, I mean, I guess you just don't, maybe you just don't like Elon Musk. I'm not sure. Uh, I'm not sure why that first comment you made, I didn't really get it, but yeah, robot wives are coming, put it that way, regardless of who makes them. But yeah, well, listen, guys, it's been an hour and a half. This has been fun, man. Really fun. I appreciate all you guys coming on here. Guys and gals, I should say. There might be some females on here too. I have a habit of saying guys because like 90 some percent of my audience is guys. Uh, Sergeant Pickles, $1.99 super chat. Thanks, man. He says, got to go all, be well, and go dogs. Thank you for the super chat, man, and thank you for all your support. You've been there with me a long time, man. I appreciate it. A lot of you people have on here. A lot of these names on here I see constantly under my videos. Some of them I've been seeing since the beginning. Outlaw of College Football, matter of fact, was my very first guest. If I'm not mistaken, he was the very first guest I ever had on my show. So he and I go back a ways. He says AI will replace us, maybe even turn on us. That used to be science fiction. It's now real. Good stream, Couz. Thanks, Couz. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to hop off of here. It's a robot wife with a volume button. That's funny, Jason. I was looking forward to some of the comments on that one, man. That is funny. Oh, you like Elon Musk? I do too. I actually do too. But I didn't want to get into that conversation because I wasn't sure what your thoughts were. But yeah, she said Elon was in the process of inventing one or making one or whatever. He can do it, man. I mean, he's done a lot of other things. Good show, Anna. Thank you, Anna, for hopping on here. See, I told you it wasn't all guys. But yeah, I appreciate the all of you hopping on here. I know I always get on here and get long winded sometimes. I went longer than I intended to, but I get on here and I enjoy talking to you guys, enjoy interacting with everybody. I really appreciate you. My intention was actually to do a call-in show tonight, and I got so busy with all the other topics I completely forgot to do it. But we'll do a call-in show again in the very near future if you guys like those. But I'm Anna's dad, John. Okay, what's up, John? Thank you for hopping on, man. But yeah, we'll do a call-in show again in the near future. I do like doing those. I just don't want to do them every time. Who's got a groupie? That's funny. You made me lose my train of thought, Outlaw. That's funny, man. But anyway, appreciate you guys. I've said enough. You all have a good night. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you on the next show. Q Country Roads.